I will need a bowl and some water, and also a pot and a flame. Our house is right behind the store. You can use the stove there, the proprietress's daughter said. She was probably concerned about the possibility of an explosion if they lit a fire in a space full of white powder. Very well. Finally, do you have any leafy vegetables and some chicken? Focus, please, NN said, giving Maomao a rap on the back of the head. She had just wanted to make the powder as tasty as possible. Maomao picked up the jar and headed for the main house. The finished flatbread was tasty, although not as tasty as it would have been with some greens and meat. In a perfect world, I think a little more corn would have been nice, and some white hare scallion and lamb's meat to round it off. Maomao, we are supposed to be talking about the powder. NN had cut up the bread and was conducting a visual inspection. She seemed to be considering flatbread for dinner. Maomao says it is acceptable, young mistress, so she did not think the white powder would be a problem. Yao said with concern, I think everyone is becoming quite impatient. She continued, you see. It is just like I told you. You keep insisting I must have added something, but I followed your formula exactly. There is nothing wrong with my product. The merchant slammed a wooden writing scroll containing the list of ingredients on the table. The proprietress and her daughter both looked like they wanted to offer a rebuttal, but there was nothing they could say. They still weren't prepared to accept they had been wrong. Would you like some? It doesn't taste unpleasant, Maomao said, but the proprietress started. But it felt different to you, didn't it? Maomao took the woman's hand. Her fingers were caked with white powder. It was even on the red of her nails. Perhaps you could think of it another way then. What do you mean? Maomao wiped the pad of one finger across one of the woman's fingernails, leaving a white streak. She had been wondering about the woman's nails. What if your previous supplier was the one adulterating his product all this time? The woman went almost as pale as her product. When a person came into contact with a poison, such as arsenic or lead, it often showed in their fingernails. You said that some other stores still sell the prohibited whitening powder. There could easily be merchants who continue to supply it without speaking up. Suppose they had whitening powder of questionable quality and added something to it as a stabilizer. The quantity of other ingredients in the mixture would minimize the symptoms of the poison. But someone who used the powder every day like the proprietress did would show the signs. Have you lost your appetite? Is your digestion poor? Do your fingers tremble? Maomao asked. She wondered what the woman's skin tone looked like beneath all that makeup. The woman's expression answered NN's questions. So you're saying this? NN looked at the jar of powder they had bought. Maomao took the jar and opened the lid. Shall we try another flatbread? With this powder? She was most interested to see the results. It was dark outside when they left the shop. The heavy clouds had opened and the ground was soaked. Shoot, we're going to get all wet, Yao said. I thought this might happen, said NN, pulling out some umbrellas Maomao hadn't even known she had. You brought umbrellas? She asked. NN tapped the sign of the store they had just left. It looked like it might rain, so I asked the shopkeeper's daughter to buy some for us. It wasn't too much to ask, considering our trouble, right? When did you mean was it too much to ask? True, the shop had sold them a harmful product. It might have been intentional or it might not have been. When they dissolved their powder in water and baked with it, the results had been undeniably different from the first time. I think you already asked quite a lot, Yao said. NN was carrying some of the new safe powder. The proprietress had also thrown in some perfume that was supposed to be good for your skin. This aromatic oil was safe to eat, but it did not hold to the skin very well. Therefore, it could be combined with the powder to form a liquid makeup. Not at all, NN replied. I wouldn't know what to do with myself if my mistress got sick. I think you should be talking to Maomao. Tell her not to put awful things in her mouth. Yao was looking at Maomao as if she still couldn't believe what had happened. Maomao had tried her best to eat the flatbread with the poisonous powder, but Yao held her arms to stop her. I would have spit it out quickly. It would have been fine. I simply wanted to see what it tasted like. I do not understand what you see in these things, Yao sighed. Let us finish our shopping before the rain truly starts falling, mistress. We have used a lot of time. NN opened an umbrella and guided Yao under it with her. Then she offered another umbrella to Maomao. It was NN who had asked for only 2 umbrellas. He explained that 2 people could fit comfortably under one umbrella if they squeezed together. NN said that if anyone was still selling ingredients at this hour, they would likely be near the bell tower. I think the market should still be open there. The bell tower was at the center of the capital and rang the hours. It was a well-trodden area, so the shops there stayed open until late. We should be hearing the evening bell any minute now, Maomao said, but she was interrupted by a searing flash of light accompanied by the booming of the bell. Yikes! What was that? Yao said, looking around in astonishment. At the same moment, a very loud noise followed right after the bell rang. Yao almost jumped and held onto NN tightly. Her mouth opened and closed, but she could not make a sound. NN gave Yao a protective hug, and he seemed pleased about it. Thunder, Maomao said. That was a big one. Are you all right, milady? NN said. Why, yeah, I'm fine, Yao said, although her face was awfully pale. A thunderclap that loud means it will start pouring soon. Shall we hurry and finish our shopping? NN said. Why, yeah, let's, Yao said. She was trying to appear unafraid, but she kept glancing at the sky. NN looked at her with fondness and stayed close. She was certainly concerned for Yao, but also amused by her show of fear. She was a bit of a strange one. Maomao already knew that. She thought she would not be selling these books today, looking at the Go books in their cloth wrapping. Then she trotted off after the others. Chapter 3 is called Trends. Jinchi's office looked much the same as it always did. There were mountains of paperwork. Bureaucrats were waiting their turn to speak with him. Occasionally a court lady appeared from nowhere, trying to get a look at him. It was bustling, no doubt, but it was substantially calmer than it had been recently. His usual workload, which already kept him busy, had doubled since the shrine maiden from Sheol came to Li. He had arranged a banquet in her honor, and during the banquet she was poisoned. Jinchi had spent many sleepless nights pursuing the case. In the end, it was all the shrine maiden's doing. It was a complete act, but that was still a significant problem. It left him with his head in his hands. The shrine maiden had survived the whole affair and was now living with the former consort Arduo. Jinchi felt a little bad about how her home was becoming a safe house. The shrine maiden had left him with troubles of her own. He, along with a small number of others, had to deal with the fallout of her death. Many officials were convinced that Sheol would use the shrine maiden as a reason to attack Li, but no offensive ever happened. Sheol was mainly a commercial and trading power. They could not start a war without significant support from another nation. In fact, the leaders of Sheol were likely relieved to be rid of the shrine maiden, who had been a bit of a problem for them. Sheol did make some demands regarding the incident, but they were nothing Li hadn't expected. They wanted import duties reduced, especially on foodstuffs. No one had expected them to simply state they did not have enough food. The shrine maiden knew Sheol's king and bureaucrats very well. She understood their personalities and their sense of political judgment. Nothing they did or asked for surprised him. In fact, Jinchi was almost taken aback by how closely everything had followed the expected pattern. This wasn't to say international issues were simple. Until a few days before, he had been so busy that the current amount of work now felt like a relief. This is for you, Master Jinchi, Basin said, placing another paper on the towering pile. And to think, this was after Jinchi had delegated more than half the work. He said, I don't suppose we could delegate half of what's left. The civil servant replied, I don't suppose, sir. The paper bore the personal chops of a number of high officials. This civil servant on whom Jinchi had foisted the work could not ignore something with so many important seals on it. These requests always found their way to Jinchi's desk, even if they were about small things. He sighed and stamped the paper with his seal. While things were busy, one of the bureaucrats helping with Jinchi's work stood up and looked toward him restlessly. He was the same man who had been with Jinchi when someone tried to poison his tea. He had entered Jinchi's service to help until Basin was fully recovered. However, he proved capable enough that Jinchi asked him to remain. The man seemed eager to get back to his ordinary place of work, but the eternally understaffed Jinchi was loath to let him go. What's the matter? Asked Basin. The man flinched. Nothing. He seemed awfully anxious for someone who thought nothing was wrong. Now that Jinchi thought about it, he realized the man had been acting a little funny for a few days. Curious now, Jinchi narrowed his eyes. Is it really nothing? I want the truth. This interrogation came not from Jinchi but from Basin, who had cornered the man. Strange things and dangerous things had been happening around Jinchi recently. Basin, who was responsible for Jinchi's safety, was on edge. If he waited to act until after something happened, it would be too late. Heek, the bureaucrat's face was taut with fear. He reached into the folds of his robe with a shaking hand. Then Basin was on him, pinning him down. Basin could be merciless when he thought someone was hiding something. Who put you up to this? He demanded, grabbing the man's wrist. Clutched in his hand was a scrap of paper. Let him go, Basin, Jinchi said, relieving the man of the paper. He looked at it and let out a sigh. Is this what was making you so nervous? Huh, Basin looked puzzled, indeed downright flummoxed. Ow, 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 please let me go, the bureaucrat said. Basin obliged, instead looking at what Jinchi had in his hand. What is this? I do not know when he had time to make such a thing, but it is quite thorough, isn't it? Jinchi said. The paper announced that someone would be publishing a book. The date given was that very day when, according to the paper, the book would be available at bookstores all over the capital. I really wanted one. Once a book sells out, you never know if you will be able to get a copy. The bureaucrat said this while rubbing his arm. He looked as if he might cry. Judging by his face, Basin at least felt some guilt. Books were luxury items. Second runs were uncommon except for the most popular titles. If a book sold out before you could get a copy, all you could do was wait for it to appear on the used market. Jinchi said, if they have gone to all the trouble of distributing an announcement, don't you think they probably plan to have a lot of stock ready? Printing itself meant they intended to make many copies. You needed to recover the expenses. I could not say, sir. I expect it will be very popular. Is the author so beloved? Jinchi asked, examining the paper as carefully as he could. Printing and distributing announcements like this to anyone and everyone, that was a new idea. He could not help but be impressed. Whoever could have thought of it? Then he saw the name and almost choked. He immediately wished he could unsee it. Basin was giving him a puzzled look. Grand Commandant Kan, sir. When Jinchi saw the title of the book, he understood. Kan was a reasonably common name, but Grand Commandant, that was a title, and only one person in the country held it. Kan Lakan, otherwise known as the Freak Strategist. Would you mind telling me who gave this to you? Jinchi asked. A friend of mine at the Board of Revenue. He was an acquaintance of the Grand Commandant's son. He was asked to give the books to everyone he knew. The Board of Revenue oversaw financial matters. This friend of a friend was Lahan. If he was involved, then the book would be more than just a passing fancy of the strategist. It would be done well. Jinchi mused, so he has written a go book. He recalled hearing that the strategist had been telling people he was going to write such a book. Jinchi simply hadn't imagined the project taking place on such a scale. As far as it went, he appreciated the help in making books more universal. He had been trying to promote paper and printing projects himself. He was surprised to discover that even this unassuming and dedicated bureaucrat wanted a copy of the strategist's book. I never realized the honored strategist had a gift for beautiful writing, he said. Who cares whether his writing is beautiful? The bureaucrat said, going from grumbling to talkative in an instant. It is almost impossible to understand what he is talking about anyway. But they say the book will contain records of Grand Commandant Kan's games. No one would want to miss that. Jinchi thought he had caught a rather uncomplimentary reference to Lakan in there. However, some people became very enthusiastic about their personal interests, and in this man's case that interest seemed to be Go. I only know a little about Go. Is Grand Commandant Kan really that good at it? Basin asked, more perplexed than ever. That good? The only person in the country who has a chance of beating the Grand Commandant is His Majesty's own Go tutor. The Emperor's tutor held the rank of Go Sage, meaning he was the best player in the nation. Jinchi had received a few lessons from the man himself. He wondered about the stone handicap from their last game together. He could not remember. Grand Commandant Kan was known for the elusiveness of his play. You never know what he will do next, or how he will come at you. A chance to study and understand his records is a very appealing prospect for any connoisseur of the game. The bureaucrat clenched his fist emphatically. His eyes were shining now. His delight in the subject seemed to have overwhelmed his resentment toward Basin over the manhandling, yet even the Grand Commandant is only human. Surely no one is truly unbeatable, Basin said. It was another not particularly polite way of talking about the strategist, but it was also true. Jinchi had to agree with him. How can you say that? The bureaucrat said. Yes, the imperial tutor is victorious over the Grand Commandant in 6 out of 10 games, but the tutor is a professional player. The Grand Commandant has a real job he must attend to. Jinchi didn't say anything. To say nothing of the fact that no one at all can beat him at shogi. Basin didn't say anything. Jinchi realized he really was very bad at handling people. Very well, Basin, do you have your purse with you? Yes, sir. Basin produced his wallet from the folds of his robes. Jinchi handed it to the bureaucrat. The bureaucrat looked from Jinchi to Basin and back again, suddenly nervous. It is not much, but please take it. A modest recompense for the discomfort Basin caused you, Jinchi said. Sir, I couldn't, the young man stammered. It's not even his. It was sadly and indeed not Basin's purse. The young man simply held on to Jinchi's money in case there was a need to purchase anything. Jinchi did not know much about market prices, but he thought this would be enough to compensate the man for his troubles. He said, I am sure your hand must be hurt. You should leave work for the day. Go to one of those bookstores. I assume that purse will cover the cost of a book. The bureaucrat said, and then some, sir. I cannot accept this. He was proving too honest for his own good. Jinchi thought he should have simply taken the money. Very well, he would try a different approach. What are you talking about? I don't mean just one book. Make sure you get one for me as well. And if there is money left over, then get one for Basin too. What are you waiting for? Go before they are sold out, or are you hoping for some hush money? Not at all, sir, I am going. The bureaucrat hurriedly showed himself out of the office. Jinchi listened to his footsteps fade, then let out a sigh. Basin, it is not polite to pinion somebody with no warning. Yes, sir. But he could have done it, Basin thought. He sounded at least apologetic. In any case, what is done is done. You did not break his arm. You have learned at least that much control. Jinchi knew that with Basin's preternatural strength, that bureaucrat's arm could easily have been pulverized. Jinchi would give Basin this much credit. He was growing up a bit. Master Jinchi said, if you will forgive my saying so, I do not have any interest in go. He seemed to be referring to Jinchi's instructions to the official to bring a copy of the book for Basin. Interested or not, it cannot hurt you to learn. Even the most sheltered young lady learns to play go. If you meet a prospective marriage partner and find you have nothing to talk about, you can at least play a game together. Who knows where it might lead? He was trying to be light-hearted, but Basin went beet red. I am sure. I had never known such young lady, and I would ever. Basin fell silent before he succeeded at getting out a complete sentence. Jinchi gave him a curious look. When he sat back down at his desk, he felt a pang of remorse. The mountain of paperwork was still there, but now his helpful bureaucrat was gone. Within a few days, every palace, pavilion and hall of the court resounded with the click of stones on boards. As Jinchi went to his office, he noticed that even the soldiers in the guardhouse were playing go. It's become quite the trend, Basin observed. Indeed, said Jinchi. It was certainly the freak strategist's book that had started this craze. Jinchi himself was carrying no fewer than 6 copies of it. Why were there so many copies when he had only requested one from the bureaucrat? They arrived with a short note. Someone gave these to me. Help yourself. The copies had come from the apothecary Maomao. He assumed to his sorrow that she hadn't sent them out of affection for him. She was probably just trying to get rid of extra copies. He knew her well. She would not normally go out of her way to buy a book by the strategist. Many copies must have been sent to her. He sometimes wished he could ask her if she truly understood the meaning of what he had said during their last encounter. Maomao was the strategist's daughter, and although she seemed intent on disavowing Lacan, from Jinchi's perspective the family resemblance was obvious. She did not want to be stuck with a gift from the father she detested. Jinchi did not feel the money he gave the official was wasted. However, he was not quite sure what he would do with 6 copies of the same book. Basin already had a copy. Perhaps he would try giving the medicinal cakes to Gaeshun, Duo and the Emperor. The apothecary's reasoning could have been similar to his, or it might not have been. He knew she was strong-willed and careful, so it was probably best to assume she had some sort of ulterior motive. Jinchi had begun by thinking about Maomao's books, but soon he found himself thinking about Maomao herself specifically, how he might convince her to accept his proposal. He needed to prepare. He had to set everything up so she could not object or refuse. He wanted to be a man who followed through on his words. Still lost in thought and watched by court ladies from a distance, Jinchi arrived at his office. An official stood outside, observing the frantic activity when he spotted someone. Basin was the one who asked, "What is it?" "Excuse me, sirs, but if you would look at this." The official handed Basin a letter. He opened it and read the contents.